Welcome to my channel today. Today I wanted us to look at one topic that has been on my mind for the past few weeks. I've been seriously considering whether I should buy some shares, or some people call them stocks, in one of these MRNA companies. So that's the topic today. Should you buy shares in an mRNA company? The first thing that I should point out is it's always risky for an individual investor to buy individual shares. There's always a risk. Make no mistake about it. Even those that are professionals do make mistakes when it comes to shares. They'll say, no, this one is a buy, but at the end of the day, after a few days, you discover that the price has tanked. So these things are unpredictable. The best way for most of us is to have our shares in a sort of a fund. If you join one of these funds, you are more protected than if you were to do it on your own, buying individual shares here and there. Unless, of course, you decide to diversify just as those funds do it. But it would be better if you go into a conservative fund where they buy shares and more or less like forget. So they will have shares in various companies, and sometimes they will also have investments in bonds as well. So the risk there is low. The return might not be that great, because it more or less, if you buy in most of these funds, they track the stock exchange, so the rate of return that you get is normally around 6 to 8%. It doesn't seem great, but your money is safe. That's the most important thing. So if you want to buy shares in individual stocks, it's something that you need to be very careful about. And if you want to do it, you need to make sure that the investment that you are making is based on the money that you can afford to lose. Because if you put all your money, all your investment, all your savings in one company, and that company tanks, that would be a very big problem. If you're old enough, you could remember the case of Enron. It's one of the companies that a lot of people invested in, and some people had all their monies, all their investments were in this one company, Enron, and it fell because of some creative accounting that was taking place in the company. It showed as if the company was making profits when it wasn't. So there's some things that can happen like that. But if you're in a fund, if one stock fails, you still have the other stocks, the other shares from other companies that are performing now, and it compensates. So at the end of the day, they used to get maybe 80% return year on year. But if you are to buy individual stocks, anything can happen. But at the same time, where there's a high risk, there's also the chance of a high return as well. For instance, those that invested, I was reading somewhere, those that had invested just $1,000 in Amazon when it was during the initial public offering. Those people that invested $1,000, their investment is now worth more than $1 million. And that was in the if I'm not mistaken, I think was it 1997. I'll put the date in the video, but I think it was 1997 or 1999. That's when Amazon listed on the stock exchange. So you're talking of an investment of $1,000, and now it's $1 million. So there's that chance that if you take a risk, sometimes it could be worth it. But as I've said, if you invest money that you can afford to lose. One of the dangers that you can get by investing in some of these mRNA companies is the fact that most of these are relying on one product. Let's take the case of Moderna. They're only relying on the COVID vaccine. So if the epidemic as it is going at the moment, I don't see, especially in the Western world, I don't see the case where you have governments encouraging people to go for boosters. I think that could be out of the picture. And if that happens, I mean, sales for Moderna will go down unless, of course, they come up with another product on the market. For instance, if they could get a vaccine for HIV and stuff, maybe that can help. Although that will take some time. HIV has been with us for 40 years, and up till today, all the vaccine trials that have taken place have failed. So there's always a risk there. Maybe they may try to invest in the flu vaccine. If that happens, yeah, there's a market there as well. But it may not be as lucrative as this one for COVID, because there's a lot of competition with the flu vaccine. So there's a limit to how much they'll be able to charge for the flu vaccine, I mean. So there are all those risks at the moment. So in the pharmaceutical industries, if I were to buy some shares, maybe I would go for Pfizer. They have the COVID vaccine, but at the same time, it's not just the COVID vaccine. They have other products as well that they've been saying. They've been saying all sorts of medicines over the years. They're searching for other medicines as well. So their portfolio is more or less diversified. It's not as if they have only one product. They have been on the market for decades, actually. So the chance of them tanking is always on the lower side. And even if their share price were to go down, you would bet that after a few years it will recover. So if you're interested in the pharmaceutical industry, I would urge you maybe to try these established companies other than going for BioNTech or Moderna. Although, as I've said, where there's a high risk, there's also a chance of a high return. For instance, if you were to consider buying shares in CureVac, which is a company that at the moment does not have anything to sell. If they're selling stuff, they could be selling some maybe rices and stuff. Maybe yes, that's what they could be making. They're making money, a few millions here and there. That's not enough to have an impact on the share price. But of course, they have also benefited from the fact that other companies have succeeded. So their share price has been going up for the past few months, even though it's a bit shaky sometimes. But if you were to invest in CureVac, which has no product, you buy it at a lower price. On the understanding that among the trials that they're conducting, maybe some of their vaccines or cancer medication might be successful, and if that were to be the case, then obviously their share price will rise and your return will be more than the 8% conservative rate of return that you get when you invest in a fund. So there's that attraction. So that's what's been on my mind as well. You're looking at that and looking at the risk that you lose your money, but at the same time you're also thinking that what if? So it's the what if that is there. It's something that has been proven that the MRNA stuff does work. At least it has worked for COVID. Although sometimes things may work for one disease and not work for another. It may work for this virus, but not work for other viruses. You've read the case of Moderna with their flu vaccine. It wasn't. It enlisted the body to produce some antibodies, fine, but their results were not that great. It wasn't. They didn't get the same success that they got through the COVID vaccine. So there's always that risk that at the moment it may look as if this thing is the in thing, this is the new thing, this is the new way things were going to be done in the future, but you never know. But as I've said, yeah, if you're willing to take a risk, then go for it. But if you are doing that, just make sure that the investment that you're making is reasonable. It's money that you're willing to lose. If you do that, then that's fine. But if you are to borrow money from somewhere and invest in this company, then that's too risky in my book. But if you're to be successful, maybe you would also make a windfall like those that invested in Amazon and those that invested even in Tesla as well. Tesla has made people millionaires who never imagined in their life that they would be millionaires. So there's always that chance. So my advice to you is, if you're willing to take the risk, I think go for it. I would also if I get some extra cash, I would definitely consider buying some shares in some of these companies. I won't go for Moderna because at the moment, I think their stock is overvalued. Moderna and BioNTech, their shares are overvalued at the moment. So thank you very much for watching this.